Nobody thirsty? All good? Great. My name is Alvar. I'm the engineering lead for consumer product at TransferWise, which means essentially a lot of things, but basically that the development of our customer-facing services is kind of under my wing. But when the track moderators here asked me to talk about how we do things about TransferWise, this is the initial title that we came up with. So who's here to hear about agile product development in financial services? Not many, a few people. Okay, cool. Who's here about product development practices in a startup? Somewhat more. And who's here to hear particularly about TransferWise? Couple, that's cool. Who just sits here at the agile track all day? Fair enough. Right. So essentially, I'd rather title the talk that follows like something else, like this. So I hope to tell you a little bit about how we do something that we ourselves call product engineering. And we put these two words together because we particularly believe that they are not two very different disciplines. There are different skill sets involved, but in the end, it should still be teams focused on same goals, same targets, working on the same things. It's just somewhat different people with different abilities. And they should all combine and come together to make the maximum effort to move the product forward. Now, people are great, but it actually comes down to culture a lot. And I will roughly split the talk into three bits. First, I'm going to tell about culture and what we think is important in culture. I think somebody, a gentleman here before, also mentioned that culture is strategy for lunch, and I fully agree. And that's why culture for us, when building our team, when building our practices and company, is maybe most important of all. And I spend about half of my time with you here actually talking about culture. I'll also tell you a little bit about some specific practices that we think help us carry the culture and help us drive it home to people and actually help us to deliver results. And if we have a bit of time, I'll also tell you a little bit about how we build the team, how we hire, what do we think is important when doing that. All set? Awesome. Right. Culture. There's one underlying principle that we hope to stay true to forever. We believe it's actually the only possible way to build a product for real people that they appreciate and that also can make a company successful. So it's quite a simple comparison here, and obviously the font sizes are different as well. So although we're growing quite fast, I think TransferWise by now is 200 plus a couple of people strong already, altogether, all over our three locations. I say 200 plus because it was 200 the day before yesterday, but I'm pretty sure the number already has changed. And there are a couple of things that this here illustrates, such as we do everything we can to avoid office politics. We do everything we can to avoid gossip. We do everything we can to get people on the team who are interested in climbing the career ladder. As the company grows, of course, people's responsibilities will grow, their compensation will grow, they will They will, in that very classical and lame sense, become more important. But we focus very hard on not building this kind of a hierarchical structure or this kind of a assigned authority into the team. And pushing back ego is also very important for honest feedback, because if you put your ego on the line, it's very hard to openly say what's wrong with the company, to openly embrace critique yourself. And this is why we always think about the customers first and ourselves last. And when I say ourselves last, this means not working 80-hour work weeks. This just means that the things that I personally want for myself at work are actually less important than I should personally want for our customers. And there are really very few people at TransferWise who are not directly improving the service or directly working for the customers. Obviously, some administrative stuff such as finance and HR, but it's really quite a tiny fraction of the whole force. And we try to push that into the specific product teams as much as possible, which is something I'm going to tell you about in a minute. That established, the way we structure the teams at TransferWise, we very much believe in vertical KPI-driven teams. Everybody knows what business metrics they try to affect. The teams usually even define them themselves. So I'm bringing an example of a team who is responsible for a fuzzy marketing term called scalable acquisition, but pretty much it means campaign-specific landing pages. And the only thing their results are measured by is the conversion rate of people coming in through different marketing campaigns. Let's say we do a marketing campaign for expats in Germany. This is the number. How many of the visitors convert? What's their lifetime value? You know, other examples as well. Indian people in UK, for instance, students, etc., etc. And by owning the KPIs, this also means that, first of all, people need to be able to work towards improving them, but also they need to be able to define them themselves, because this actually changes quite a lot over time. So again, when speaking about marketing and web sales, we looked at our conversion number, like converting visitors to our site into actual paying customers, as kind of this one big single number for quite a while. As our customer base has grown and our activities have scaled up horizontally, this just doesn't really work anymore. So we continuously also have to define what are the things that we need to measure ourselves by. And another thing that the KPIs bring along is focus. So this is what I'm doing, this is what I need to change, and this can help me to be less distracted by what else goes on in a company, which, knowing now startup life for about 18 months is a lot. So it's very easy to just basically sit and read emails if you're not able to weed out all the things that are distractions for you. And I think what's particularly important is that when I really know what my goal is and I work with a bunch of like-minded people and I actually can do all the changes to the product that I need to, it also empowers me as a person to actually go out and do all that. So I don't really depend on many people when I need to make a change to the product. And I think this is super cool, because this is something that I know I personally have been missing for many, many, many years. Any questions? Feel free to ask questions meanwhile, I don't mind at all. So just shout whenever you want to. Yeah, one more thing to mention, it actually makes also for a pretty flat structure, and we hope to keep this pretty flat structure for quite a while. So there are people overlooking some aspects of the business on a more general level, but that doesn't mean there's any kind of a middle management layer to speak of. MVPs are another term that's been flying around a lot today already. And when we develop our products and services, we love to think of brutal MVPs, and we don't think actually our MVPs are brutal enough, meaning that occasionally we still end up building a thing that's a little bit larger or bigger than actually needs to be to prove a point. But the underlying idea of this is that everything we do must serve a purpose. And it sounds kind of lame, you know, whatever is there that people in any organization do that doesn't apparently have a purpose. But what we usually do not know, particularly if we set out to do a bigger, wider project, is whether the assumption that we base it on is actually true. And we usually, if we go out building a larger feature, we inherently assume that we know that this will solve a problem. We are TransferWise. We're far from being that smart. We assume that we don't know that until we've actually gone out and measured it. And this means a lot of experimentation, a lot of testing. I can bring you a really specific example. I think about a year ago, we launched Hungarian forint as an outgoing currency. Cool.
What means MVP?
Very good question, pardon me. MVP means minimum viable product. Minimum viable product actually, in a longer sentence, means the smallest thing you can build that actually gives you some insight, or actually gives you the ability to validate this assumption that I was speaking of. Right, and we really cannot know if a feature that we are building is useful before we actually test it. And that's why we usually build it really small. Hungarian forint case, we launched Hungarian forint with a totally manual process. Totally manual in our case means that every single payment our users entered had to pretty much be replicated by somebody in our payment processing team, filling out field by field and pressing submit in the end. And we still think it was a really a very right thing to do. And in the end, we ended up learning a lot about Hungarian forint, such as that their foreign exchange at the local banks are really crappy. And our service was really needed. So if in the end of the first week, I think the first week we did almost like 1,000 payments, which was a huge number, obviously, to do manually. But at least we knew we needed to invest anything we could into actually, improving the interface now, and it made a lot of sense because we would have never assumed it's going to be such a big currency. So it's still a lot bigger than many of the larger currencies in the region. And this brings me to kind of a wrap up of the MVP point. Yeah, Polish. Projects and features are not actually outputs. If we go out to build a project it feels good to get it done, but it on its own does not make our business better. On its own, it does not bring any additional euro or pound or dollar of profit or even revenue into our bank account. So the projects and features that we build, we believe, are only inputs. And they are inputs that our customers then, if they really like them, can process or turn into outputs in terms of business value. And this is super important and sad, in a way. How does it make you feel? Good. It makes me feel sad and mad, but super excited. Right. Any questions about the last step? I'm happy to explain more.
So that last one,
Yeah.
that is true in lots of other industries.
Sure.
You don't build a school, you build an education facility. You don't build a hospital building, you build a health facility. So I think it's a nice way of thinking what we think of projects actually are part of a program, part of an organisation. So it works for you, it works elsewhere as well.
Yeah, and then it's actually a manifestation of ownership as well. That do you as a team member is end of a project the end of your engagement with a particular topic, or is it just basically the starting point of seeing how this assumption actually works? And this makes me super excited about working for an actual product or a service company as opposed to working for a outsourcing company, because my engagement with a product ends when I leave the company. And since I feel very strongly about the mission, might not even end there, but then I would just be more like a passive participant. But this helps really drive the mission and ownership home as well. Thanks for the question or the remark.
So it also changes your KPIs. You start thinking like this.
It does. So this is why lines of code for a developer is a very shitty KPI. Number of projects is also quite a shitty one. But unfortunately, I don't think nowadays many people measure businesses this way even. I mean, yeah, if you're an outsourcing company, your bottom line kind of is affected by how well you're able to complete the project, and this is where your engagement ends. But yeah, exactly. So the KPIs need to be real in that sense. So there is no point in having something some people call vanity metrics that just make it look nice but do not mean a thing. So coming to a few ideas about how to make all that work. So essentially, what we've talked about are really nice values, but there are a few more detailed thoughts or implementation details, kind of. So, all the ideas here are really borrowed, and they're floating around in the world for a long time. And actually, many of these quite well map to the Agile Manifesto principles as well. Some even one-to-one. So I'm just using the chance to express how many of these do work out in real life. Although we'd often like to see them working out even better, but it's at least this foundation that we go by. So blameless culture. If we blame people about things that they're doing, that usually shuts them down pretty well, right? If we start blaming people, they start covering up for their mistakes. They start pointing fingers. They start having a lot less initiative, because it could easily hurt if you say something that's wrong. And it really shuts down progress in a way that's maybe not even painful, but that kind of eats you from the inside. So it's not so much evident that is the reason why somebody doesn't speak up anymore after getting bashed by their boss. You just do not even notice that for a while. And if you do that for several people, and if that's pointing fingers is part of what your team's doing, then everybody just goes a little bit numb and goes home at 5, which is a good thing, but doesn't maybe in the background think so much how they could be better, but rather than how they could get away from it as fast as possible, and probably makes them a lot less engaged. And making people do something that they're not used to doing is very hard anyway. So if we couple that with the fact that I expect you to do a lot more than you're used to, and I'm going to blame you for your mistakes while doing that. I mean, come on, whoever would. Whoever would do anything they don't feel super sure about. And to take that to the max, this is something that comes down from Bristol and Tallinn and hopefully through everybody, all the team leads that we have. If you see a problem, go ahead, think it through, fix that the way you see fit, explain it to others, but do not ask for approval every step along the way. We have to trust our people well enough that we expect them to do maybe not perfect, maybe not even good, but quite working decisions. And working decisions, no matter how temporary, they take you a long way. Because, hey, another problem solved. Maybe it gets a grade of 3 out of 5, but you don't have to worry about it anymore as an organization, at least for a while. So we think that's good. And I think at TransferWise, this is subjective now, no research, but I think most of the actual blame and shame that we have in the organization is rather for not doing something than for doing something. And even for not doing something, it's about not contributing where it would have been easy to contribute. So this is, in my books, a very, very constructive and rather, constructive kind of shame that rather pushes people a bit forward rather than holding them back. Cool. We have the people who wanted to do great stuff, but we yet don't maybe have the whole picture. So if we hire the kind of people who actually like what the company is doing, who have an opinion about that, and if they have an opinion about the matter and have decided to join us, it's rather, probably reinforcing to the company, meaning that they are passionate about what the company is trying to build or do. Then there is only one thing that can get in their way, and that is somebody else telling them what way they should do their work, which basically is top management, the board, whatever, enforcing their vision in too much detail. So we're all here, meaning that we probably share the mission, we likely share the vision anyway. So why don't we just let go of it and let the smart people that we have on the team go out there and do their best instead of trying to tell them what to do. And obviously, it's the CEO's job in a way to have an opinion about things. But I know our CEO is actually super careful, more and more careful about ever expressing it. Because if the CEO tells you something, it's actually quite hard to challenge it. Even inside, well, yeah, okay, this guy has been doing it for years and has received like a couple of awards for it. Probably he knows what he's doing. Well, yeah, fortunately for us, he also understands that it's not necessarily so. And he should let his people do the work. And this is not just about Crystal Dynamo. This is actually again about many people in the company whose opinion is valued. That no opinion should kind of be approved without doubting it or challenging it. And all this, wrapping up the culture part. We actually believe that if the culture is right and the people are motivated to do what the company is trying to achieve, this is just about giving people the power to make that vision a reality. There are still integrated pieces, there's still people not working together well, and still little things that you need to solve, and all kinds of the daily little details. But essentially, you can let people do their work and not worry about what kind of a task to assign each particular individual the next morning. They're quite well able to figure that out. This was culture. Next up, practices. Any culture questions? Sorry, I take a pause to thank Nortel for this excellent drink.
Can you bring us names of some other companies who have the same vision, same culture?
I actually think there are quite many of them. I'm not sure. Yeah, in Estonia it's potentially okay. So haven't worked for every single startup, but actually I think doing this well is an essential part of building a successful startup and scaling it, because you're constantly undermanned. The founders usually have just a vague idea of they do have an idea of what problem they're trying to solve, but they don't have a detailed plan about how. And yeah, constant lack of resources, etc., etc. You cannot hire people to fill all the missing gaps and missing skills. You have to be able to hire people who you engage to join you on the journey, and you can just figure it out on the go. And while that is particularly true when you're 5 people strong, I think that's quite just as true for a 200 people strong company. And if you start looking at 2,000 and 20,000 person companies, in every single one of them there are divisions and departments and small business sections who need to get their work done. And if you can get your work done with people who can not only answer the how to do this question, but also what next question, that's valuable. So yeah, answering your question, I think there are actually quite many, but I think right now it's rather this kind of a startup approach to things, just because it's the only way to actually succeed. Well, you might get lucky, but in terms of building a product, I actually do think that you have to have a really good culture to have it work out. Practices get slightly more technical. I hope that makes somebody of the audience happy. So, the thing on the left here, top 2 we already discussed. So every team should have clear metrics, but we also want to apply the same approach to our systems. And give every team a nice bit of the system that they would be the ones changing most often. Meaning that we essentially try to not only align the KPIs and teams, but then also system components. Well, yeah, it probably can never be truly black and white, but we try to do this because we also believe in Conway's law, meaning that if we have structured the teams in a way that drives our business forward, then the teams themselves already naturally are driven to pull the system apart in a way that helps them to work in the most efficient way. Make sense? It's kind of positive, maybe. So the idea is that even if we today have not a very modular system, as we're still a growing company and a growing product, if we give the teams ownership of some specific parts of the system, it is in their interest to A, keep it clean and keep it nice, and B, also do what they can so they could work on that as independently as possible. Instead of, let's say, having a request that some backend team or some database team in the other end of the organization has to find time for 3 months down the road. And this brings me to the weak ownership point, that the ownership that we have for the components isn't very strong or hard. I think if you Google weak ownership model, it will even turn up on Wikipedia. The point is that for every component there is a team that owns it, but everybody can actually do in and make the changes as long as they talk it through and we have some practices in place how that should happen. So that's weak ownership for us. But there is ownership, there is somebody taking care of this corner of the park, but everybody's allowed to visit it. Maybe I'm going to put a signpost up saying that do not litter here, do not pee your dog here, but otherwise, you're come in and do your thing, we don't mind. And after speaking about structuring the system according to the teams, another interesting topic that usually pops up in this kind of self-organizing discourse are roles. So this might sound harsh for anybody, but it's purposefully so. So forgive me and don't stalk me in the dark. However, we do not believe in enablers. And by enablers, we mean roles that purely carry kind of a support function. Support function in a way of project managers, because having project managers on the team kind of assumes that people working on something do not really know how to work very efficiently. And there are very much different kinds of project managers who actually know a great deal about the business domain and know how things should work and have a very analytical approach to the actual problem at hand. And I very much respect people who happen to have a project manager as their title and actually know about the business domain. However, I also know many project managers who are just that. And a project manager who just knows how to put together a budget and draw down a Gantt chart, I think in our line of business, in that sense, is an enabler, that there are more efficient ways for the team to actually understand how well they are doing about something and not just upload it to somebody because we don't care about these date things. Testers is a little bit fuzzier subject because we did have a testing role at one point. We just grew out of it, meaning that we either had to hire more QA people or then figure out a different way of doing that. We decided to figure out a different way of doing that, which is we removed the QA function as this kind of a safety net that developers use to throw their stuff to and then expect somebody would tend for it for them, or like go over it and see if they had actually done a good job, while going over that and seeing that they have done a good job would, in my books again, be a developer's job. And we do miss some exploratory testing, so it's very much of a process, and then we still have to figure out how to get something solved. That said, we try to be better and better at automation. We try to be better and better at testing in teams. Some of our teams are doing this really well. In some teams, product managers help, who are very good people to do that, just because they actually also have the know-how themselves of how things should work and how things should look. And I think this is, this definitely is really valuable. So again, coming back to the point about project managers, that if you're this maybe it's just has given maybe a bad name to the title. So it's usually not about people who contribute to their max, but rather people who have been assigned this project manager role and then just stand there and do only their thing, if that makes sense. We also believe in code reviews and pair programming, which are our ways of improving code design and code quality. And reflecting back to what I said before, we believe in cross-functional teams, meaning that the team should have all the skills and abilities necessary to do the work they need to do in order to improve their KPIs. And we have still too few loads, but loads of metrics. And not just metrics of loads. Sorry for that pun. We have metrics of all kinds of stuff. We used to have metrics about our application performance. We are now looking more at business metrics. This is for a very recent period. Payments created by platform versus previous week. We don't have the previous month data, so it's kind of misleading a little bit. So this is something that runs on the TVs in our quarters. And we also started looking at our process metrics. For instance, we have a separate dashboard for our CI build queue, which tells us that we really need to do something to our CI system because the queue occasionally gets pretty long. And we have quite hard evidence to show for that. We also probably need to start soon doing something about our functional test runtime, because when the queue lengths are long, and if we look at the test runtimes, I think they're pretty well aligned actually, in that it's somewhere around daytime the machine load goes high and everything's just clogs up, and probably it's pretty hard to get the build through at that time. And we have found this super helpful because this is something that, again, I have known for a long time, but I guess you really need to learn by experience, meaning that things actually start changing magically, almost magically, if you visualize some of the pain points that you have. Here's another one. Registered issues by team. So I guess this actually goes exactly like this. So we used to have this. We created the dashboard on the left here. Everybody suddenly figured out that, hey, whoa, wait, what's going on there? We have loads of issues. Many of them, some of them were just automatically registered issues for exceptions in production code that actually had been fixed a while ago, and like similar small little tweaks to the product that already had actually been done. So it was just, a big part of that was just the craft, which you can see really nicely in the middle there. So it just forced us to clean up a bit. And then in the end, it's been already a little bit more now about cleaning and fixing and get rid of stuff. Still a long way to go, so if you look at the thinner slices, I guess you can extrapolate the numbers, which is why I'm going to move on really quickly from this slide. A little bit in releasing. I have exactly 3 minutes left, which means I'm going to rush a little bit. Just because that might be interesting for some of you. We do planned releases pretty much daily, not even every day, but more like when someone feels like it. And our cycle time for an urgent fix is roughly 1 hour, which actually includes doing the fix if it's a small one, keeping the build going, doing the full release on production. So there's a lot of room to improve, but then again, hey, it's not days, so we are not very, very unhappy with that. There's a little bit of too much manual processing involved in the name there, so that's what we want to improve. And as a funny finishing touch, this is an actual incident escalation process of a financial service company called TransferWise. We believe ourselves to be pretty successful, and I'm pretty proud of this diagram. Yeah, feel free, I have massive phone numbers and emails. So the point of having processes like this is that it should be super simple for anybody using it to escalate or to make a decision about the situation they're in. It should be the same about an incoming bug report from customer support. It should be super easy to decide which team does it belong to. If you have a problem like this, if customers are calling in, you don't want to spend time into figuring things out and finding people, you just want a number to call. Or then, if it's a smaller problem, just drop the message somewhere. And the QR code takes you to an internal text representation of the same thing. I do have one more slide about hiring, but I would rather take 2 or 3 questions with my remaining 80 seconds. Happy to talk. I'll be around for the days.
Oh, that's a good question. So you said that when you see something to fix, you just fix it and apologize later. Has it caused a lot of like stepping on other people's toes, especially when the company has grown?
Yeah, I think the easy answer is we still don't have enough of that do first, apologize later for that to become a problem. And I honestly, I don't, yeah, people are opinionated, but as long as everybody shares this idea of fixing the issues, and maybe, maybe it's okay to have the issue fixed in another way than mine. I mean, that if I'm ready to accept another solution, then we're good to go. So it's about personalities a little bit as well. And I know it's maybe not always easy to let go of your perfect idea if someone just goes in and puts on a patch. But one less thing to worry about. One more?
How often do you look at your KPIs? And how often do you change them?
We look at most of them, I would say daily. But that obviously, there's fluctuation involved. There's nothing to tweak daily in that sense. So there are like monthly fluctuations, obviously, and so on and so forth. We take a bit of a deeper look monthly. Well, we have the weekly internal reports and so on, but that's not so much about KPIs maybe. So yeah, we take a little bit of a deeper look monthly, and I think once per quarter we are pretty well ready to go in and decide what we as a company want to do next, which at some occasions has already also meant shuffling teams around because we discover there's actually another KPI that's important that we haven't been working on too much, or stuff like that. Did that? Thank you. Already overtime.